Well, the 20th UFC on Fox event just wrapped up in Chicago, Illinois, and it ended in somewhat surprising fashion. Valentina Bullet Shevchenko, the pride of Kyrgyzstan, defeats Holly Holm via unanimous decision, 49 to 46. All three judges had it. Who saw that coming? Unbelievable stuff. Welcome to the MMAfighting.com UFC on Fox 20 post-fight wrap-up. I'm Ariel Helwani. That guy is Luke Thomas. You know him. We're going to recap a pretty entertaining night, at least the main card was, I thought, in Chicago. Luke, all right, so this was a big fight for Holly Holm, a big fight for Shevchenko. A lot of people thought that Holly Holm was going to get back on track with Shevchenko, put herself right back in the title chase. It didn't happen. First off, did you score it the same way the judges did?
I did, 49-46. I thought, obviously, Holm dropped her in the first round. Okay, that's basically going to be her round because the rest of it was relatively even. And then from there on out, like the things that I sort of noticed was Shevchenko was able to get the takedowns but not do a whole lot with him. So I don't know how much that really factored in. And you could tell when they locked up for sure that Holm was the bigger fighter and maybe even the stronger fighter aggregately, but pound for pound, it looked like, you know, obviously Shevchenko could hold her own in that weight class, but more than that, it just looked like, number one, the speed of Shevchenko gave Holm a lot of problems. She was willing to take a few more risks, and she just a few more weapons as well. You know, Holm was used to people backing her up and then her having to find an escape route, and now she had to do the stalking here against an opponent who was basically all too happy to be backed up because you saw what happened. She could time the right hook. She could throw spinning attacks as well, and not that those were the most successful, but you get the idea. She was just in her comfort zone, and that division is a mess.
So it seems clear to me that everyone thought that Holm won the first round, which is interesting, that Shevchenko was able to regroup, figure things out, and then sweep the next four. How did she start to figure out Holly Holm? Because she beat Holly essentially at her own game in the striking battle. Yes, there were some moments on the ground, but, you know, Shevchenko really figured out Holly Holm on the feet. How'd she do it, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, this is a better question for a striking coach, but I did talk to one yesterday. I spoke to Stephen Wright, of course, as the striking coach for Johnny Hendricks, and, you know, one thing he made clear was he had a really healthy respect for the abilities of Valentina Shevchenko and Holm, of course, too. But one of the things he said that you're probably going to look to see from Holly Holm was that she came in with a 1-2-1 or a 2-1-2, you know, jab, cross, or cross, jab, cross. And you saw a lot of that. She had a little bit of problems with the distancing. You know, she threw those kicks, those side kicks, or those oblique kicks from the outside, but every time she tried to really close the distance into boxing range, that speed and that ability of Shevchenko to adjust, it just enabled her to get warmer and warmer and warmer and warmer. And so over time, you just really saw in the end there, I'm not saying she was like in total control the whole time, but she was definitely getting the better of the exchanges for basically the majority of the bout.
It was interesting in the post-fight interview, the first question asked to Holly Holm was about taking this fight and the risk of taking this fight. And it seems once again she has to defend herself for just being a fighter. I mean, it's amazing. Second time in a row that she's forced to answer these questions. And now she's 0-2 since beating Ronda Rousey. Do you feel like that win has now been this black cloud hanging over her, that she just can't shake it? She can't. Of course, I know she was very close to defeating Miesha Tate. But it's an amazing sight to see from that victory in November, not that long ago, around 8 months ago, that she's now 0-2 and losing a pretty one-sided decision here to Valentina Shevchenko.
Wow, it feels like 8 years, not 8 months, you know? It's crazy. I saw a stat on Twitter before we got on here that since UFC 193, the bantamweight champion of the women's division is 0-4.
Wow.
The belt's just, I mean, it's a hot potato. They just cannot hold on to it. Of course, this was not a title fight, but to your point, like, these people are taking risks, and you're seeing that there is a little bit more parity, I think, at the top of this division than we were aware of. You know, it's a really difficult question, and I don't really know that there's any right answers. Look, I think it depends on your perspective. There's a lot of people, including me, who I'm a little bit partial to the idea that, like, you probably have a Holm Tate fight if you want it. Although the winner of that would then be, you know, in Holmes' case, 3 losses in a row and Tate's back-to-back. Neither of those are great scenarios, but you could do it. but you definitely don't have the Rousey Holm or Rousey Tate fights because she's only going to come back and fight the person with the title. So it's either going to be Nunes or Shevchenko, which is, it's not the same. But at the same time, these are martial artists. They're fighters. Like, they don't want to sit on the couch and just speculate about when Ronda may or may not return. They don't want to live their lives around them, and they want to get out there and compete, win, lose, or draw. And I kind of really respect that. I do. But this is the risk you run when you do that. So, look, if the fans want to be disappointed that they didn't wait because we've lost these fights, I think it's a fair perspective. But I also am not really going to be, too heavy-handed and condemn Holm for doing the things that she believes got her here, even if she came up on the wrong end of a fight tonight.
So Valentina Shevchenko in a bit of an awkward spot because she's coming off a loss to Amanda Nunes, and as was noted on the broadcast, she lost the first 2 rounds of that fight, started to pick up a lot of steam in the third, but it was a little too late. We wonder what would have happened if it was a 5-round fight like it was this evening. Do you see them going back? I mean, a win over Holly Holm would normally warrant a title shot, I would think, especially one that impressive. But do you see them going back to now Nunes Shevchenko for the title? Or do you go with Juliana Pena, who's coming off a win over Kat Zingano? Or do you pray to the MMA gods that Ronda Rousey comes back? Now, I want to take Ronda Rousey out of this question because that's the easy answer. If Ronda isn't coming back and they want Amanda Nunes to defend the title at some point later on this year or early next year, which direction do you go in?
Jesus. I don't know. Of course, if Ronda comes back, all right, you're right. It is the easy answer. I'm guessing you go with Pena.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you could do that rematch, but why do it so suddenly? If somehow Pena loses, it's not the end of the world. She is obviously the caliber of fighter who is, if not in that top space, just outside of it and still young and can get there. Or she ends up showing up in ways that I think her supporters might think she could, and now you've got somebody else that you can market. And then if Rousey comes back, Rousey Pena is not a bad fight, actually, from their Ultimate Fighter history. So that would be a bit of a saving grace for all things going on here, but it's not a lot of easy, obvious answers.
Yeah, and perhaps a silver lining here is if Rousey doesn't come back, you can maybe now do Holm Tate 2, which I think is a big money fight. But, what a mess. What a mess in the women's bantamweight division. Okay, let's move along. Let's talk about the co-main event. I think a lot of us had high expectations for this fight, Gilbert Melendez versus Edson Barbosa. And while Barbosa won a rather one-sided decision as well, I thought it was a very entertaining fight. Did you agree with the judges who, for the most part, scored it 3 rounds to none except for 1 for Barbosa?
Yeah, I had 30-27 Barbosa, but I didn't think 29-28 was egregious. Defensible, depending on how you want to look at things, perhaps in that second round, although I didn't think the third round was particularly close, obviously not the first either. Barbosa is incredible, I thought that some of his defensive liabilities in the pocket were shorn up in terms of exchanging. Obviously, the trademark leg kicks, my God, like they were. His fights, like I love MMA, and we talked about that MVP knockout of Cyborg and how hard it was to watch. I'm not putting these leg kicks on par with that in terms of the actual damage they score, but just in terms of like the human element of watching a person suffer like that, it's hard to watch, quite honestly. But Gilbert Melendez is incredibly tough. I actually thought, like all things considered, the scorecard, even if you had 30-27, I thought Gilbert Melendez fought pretty good, off for a long time, and I don't know what exactly he's been doing in his off time, but it clearly is not sitting around. He was competitive at times, rocking Barbosa at one time, right, really badly, not able to follow up, but everyone gets chewed up by Barbosa's leg kicks. There's no shame in that, and he was really forcing at times Barbosa to exchange with him at boxing range where he had a lot of success. So I don't know exactly what's next for him, and maybe he's not exactly in the title picture, but he's still a pretty vibrant part of a very vibrant weight division.
Yeah, I say one-sided. Those were close rounds and a very close 30-27, I would believe, on most scorecards. I think he is sort of knocking on that one fight away from really being in that title picture discussion. It's amazing to see, and I speak very highly of Mark Henry and the team that he's built in New Jersey. Ever since he's moved to New Jersey full-time, look, he has a very solid win over Anthony Pettis and now a very solid win over Gilbert Melendez. I threw out the idea of him fighting Rafael dos Anjos, and I know RDA is coming off a loss, but it's a title loss. Do you like that idea for him? Because the other two options are Khabib and Tony Ferguson. I suspect Khabib gets the next title shot, and he just lost to Ferguson. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. So what do you think of RDA versus Edson? And if not, do you have a better idea?
I don't have a better idea. Now, I could imagine, I will say that Barboza versus Khabib is interesting because you can see that Barboza's takedown defense is incredible, right? He was literally throwing Gilbert Melendez off of him. Now, I'm not saying Gilbert Melendez has the takedowns that Khabib Nurmagomedov does, but as we saw in the Gleason-Tebow fight, if Khabib can't get the takedowns, it can be trouble for him on the feet. He's no match for Barboza on the feet. I think we can all agree there. So that would be kind of fun, but to your point, it looks like he's sort of headed in that title picture direction. I like the RDA fight. That's a really competitive fight. Both guys have a lot of similar talents, but obviously I would say that, RDA is a little more well-rounded. Barboza is a little more skills more centered on the stand-up portion of the fight, but it would be very, very competitive. If it was a main event, I would really like it. I don't think that fight should be 3 rounds. That should be a 5-round fight. Those guys, they're at this level where if you're in the lightweight division and you're trying to win a fight to be a #1 contender, you should not be fighting in a 3-round fight. I think that should be not a rule, but a rule of thumb, maybe. I would like to see that. So, yeah, I think that would be a great call. It'd be a lot of fun. And, Mark Henry, one thing I really want to say about him is, I think the charge that when John Jones left Team Bomb Squad, and went to Greg Jackson's, that Jackson changed him. I don't know how true that is. I think he changed a lot on his own. But you can say definitively, Mark Henry doesn't change guys. He doesn't make them be something they're not. But he takes what they are, and he makes it a lot better. And I really, really appreciate that out of him.
Yeah, a very impressive stable, and they've all gotten a lot better since working with him. I want to quickly ask you about the heavyweight division. There's a shortage of young up-and-coming stars there, and I'm wondering if you now think that Francis Ngannou is one of those stars as well. A very quick win, somewhat disputed. First, tell me what you thought of the stoppage, and second, tell me what you think his ceiling is. Is this guy a major player now in the heavyweight division?
Didn't like the officiating a lot tonight, except, well, that's not true, actually. Big John McCarthy taking the point, loved it.
Yeah, that was great.
Herb Dean took a point, if I'm not mistaken, as well, in a different fight, right? Or am I imagining things?
Well, that was for the knee.
That's for the knee, that's right. So in that sense, the two guys who we know to be great referees were, of course, great. But then, of course, you had the mouthpiece missing, which is not the end of the world, but not great either. And then also, I'm sorry, when Shevchenko got that takedown, she just stalled. She didn't do anything on top. And they would have been well within their right to stand him up. So not all that great in terms of the officiating. But to answer the point about old Francis Ngannou, whose name I'm sure I am horribly not pronouncing correctly, God, he looks like a comic book character, man. He walks in that cage like he is a different like he's from the planet Krypton, and guys just don't. Once he touches them, they start thinking quite differently about how to approach the fight. Now, the stoppage itself, look, was he taking a ton of abuse shelled up like that? No, but if you're shelled up like that and you stay shelled up like that, that's what someone does when they. That's not exactly the same as tapping, but you have to do more than just stay shelled. It's intelligent defense, and this is intelligent to a degree. I mean, you're not opening your head for more strikes, but it's not enough. You got to move. You got to get out of there. And he was in side control. He wasn't holding him down, so it wasn't like he was digging for underhooks and then reaching for bicep control. He was just kind of covering up. So I don't have much of a problem with the stoppage, to be honest.
And do you feel like he's like a lot of fans were saying, let's put him against Derek Lewis, which seems fun, maybe a little premature in their rise. How far away? Like, what's the ceiling here? Because let's be honest, he's not fighting the creme de la creme. Pardon the pun.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, until you can see him fight like a Verdun level or a JDS level, guys who probably don't have his power. JDS has big power and a big swing, but I don't think he has the casual power that Ngannou has. But I don't know that he has nearly the level of refinement. I kind of like the Lewis fight. Lewis likes to go out there and bang. He's a little bit wild. Maybe in this particular case, Ngannou's a little bit more refined on the feet, but not majorly so. I'd argue that maybe even Derek Lewis is more well-rounded. There's still a lot about his game he's untested. I think Ngannou has, less than 10 fights or something approximate to that. He doesn't have a ton of experience in MMA, so I don't think the Lewis fight would be too fast. I think it'd be a lot of fun. There's other ones you could put in there. I'm not saying that's the one you have to make, but I don't think it's inappropriate if they made it.
Felice Herrig with a quick win in her home state. Eddie Wineland with a big win as well. Sort of woke up that crowd right before the main card. Anything else you want to touch on before we say goodbye? Any other performance that really stood out to you?
Herrig's performance was great because it was redemptive. I really went into that one thinking it was going to be a bit of a toss-up because both fighters, they have a lot of offense, but their defense, it's not like their defense is bad, but sometimes they just throw it to the wind and fight on the other person's terms. And I'm not saying Kaylin Curran did that exactly, but it looked to me that the time off for Felice Herrig was great. Like, there's time off where you're not doing all the right things you're supposed to be, or you're not in a flow, and you get out of your flow, and that's when you get ring rust. But when you have to hit the reset button, and then you get back to what you're doing, that's what you saw. Really, really great performance for her. Obviously, Eddie Wineland had a strong performance. Shout out to Jason Knight and Jim Allers on the prelim card. Had a hell of a fight. And then in the post-fight comments, he does the old Mike Jones the rapper bit and gives out his cell phone number, which is kind of crazy. So that was fun as well.
Yeah, I wonder how many people have called him since we put that up around 3, 4 hours ago. Best part about all this, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, and the card is finished. Unbelievable. I know you appreciate that as well. What a weekend in mixed martial arts, right? Darian Caldwell, massive upset loss on Friday night. Mackenzie Dern, her debut victory on Friday as well. And then Holly Holm losing in the main event of UFC on Fox 20 to Valentina Shevchenko. We'll have a lot to talk about on the MMA Hour. You'll have a lot to talk about on the Monday Morning Analyst, so stay tuned for that. And sprinkled throughout our YouTube page, of course, a lot of post-fight coverage from Chicago, so check that out as well. For now, we say goodnight. Thank you for watching. For Luke, I'm Ariel. Appreciate it very much. We'll talk to you on Monday.